Hey, everybody. Before we get this episode started, we have my mother, Roseanne Barr, and the great Jack Posobiec here. I just wanted to remind you all that we are sponsored by Beverly Hills Precious Metals. It's been going really good for you guys and for us. It's a great partnership we have with them. So I just want to remind you to go to bh-pm.com. You can get a free consultation if you want to look into putting some money in precious metals to protect your money. They can do IRA rollovers. You can actually roll over your IRA into gold and silver, which right now, the way things are going, as we talk about weekly, that might be the smartest thing you can do. So go to bh-pm.com, do a consultation. You don't have to do anything. You can just ask questions, but make sure, most importantly, that you say Roseanne sent you. That helps us track and make sure that everybody's getting information back and forth. We've had a lot of success so far with a lot of people protecting their wealth there, and we just want to keep it going. So again, bh-pm.com. All right, Mom, you take it away.
Oh, you see, my patience is growing.
Greetings, Earthlings. I'm glad you're here for my podcast. It's going to be a wild ride. We're going to talk about everything we're not supposed to talk about. And we're going to do it with a great intellectual, and I'm very excited to act like I'm smart, with my guest tonight, Jack Posobiec. Did I say it right?
No.
Posobiec.
No.
Is that right?
No.
Well, they're both right. They're both right.
Posobiec.
Posobiec is the way we say it in the like in American English, but in Polish it's Posobiec. And we were chatting beforehand, and I said both, and that's probably thinking it because Posobiec is the full Polish version because Barr isn't your original.
No,
right?
My real name is Borisovsky.
Borisovsky, yeah.
Yeah.
So Borisovsky, Posobiec.
Borisovsky.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just a couple of Eastern Europeans over here.
Right.
Russian spies, Russian
couple of
agents
Russian
right here.
spies.
Yeah, my boyfriend's real name is Karmanik, and we always say Karmanik and Borisovsky.
Kormanik and Borisovsky, yes, we are here to meddle in election. We are going to be conducting a lot of interference, and the Putin has given us direct instructions to meddle with CIA, GOP, DNC, OnlyFans. It's all coming together. You will see.
Well, so speaking of all that, you're a fascinating person. You speak Chinese.
A little bit, yeah.
That's
thank you.
crazy.
Yeah, it's I lived in China for a couple of years after college, and so I was in Shanghai and got a sort of like a really junior job with the Shanghai American Chamber of Commerce, and then was working for an international business firm for a few about another year after that, so 2 years total, and then came back to the U.S. And joined the U.S. Navy and predominantly focused on China while I was in the Navy, but then also did a year at Guantanamo Bay because why not? But throughout that time, I was a Mandarin linguist, so using language ability for trying to use it for the good of the country was the idea at the time.
What do you think of? Well, your children speak several languages too, right?
Yeah, so we're trying to raise the kids to be essentially trilingual.
God, that's amazing.
And so we want, and it's our gift to them, right? It's our gift to them, and and you can pretty much write your own ticket, and once they have it, they can do whatever they want with it.
I wish. My kids have trouble just speaking English.
Yeah, Jake over here. I can barely understand that guy. The things that happen in China. When you're talking about 5%, 10%, this is the scale that I think most Americans, we almost can't comprehend it.
Right.
Because you say 5%, 10%, that's tens of millions of people across the country. So 10%, that's almost 100 million people.
Yeah.
Right, in China.
That's
and
a third of
over 100 million people.
1/3 here.
Right. So that would be right. It would be a third of the Americans, and so this has become a huge issue for the Chinese Communist Party to clamp down on. And so there are the 5 approved religions of China, but in order to be sort of the hierarchy of those religions, so if you're in them, so like take a priest for example, you have to be approved by the party to be a priest.
Man.
Right, and this comes up with the Vatican agreement with the Chinese Communist Party because obviously for Catholics, it's the church appoints priests, not the government.
Right.
But they made a deal basically with the current Pope Francis, made a deal with the Chinese Communist Party to only appoint approved Chinese communist sources, which, oh, by the way, is a huge affront to the actual Christians that are locked up in China,
right,
who apparently he didn't see an interest in doing anything about them,
no,
or people like Cardinal Zen of Hong Kong who have been arrested, who have been detained, who have been persecuted for practicing their faith. So you've got these guys who are locked up. And wouldn't it be wonderful if at some point if Pope Francis was making a deal with the Chinese Communist Party to at least raise the issue with them, and we got nothing. We got absolutely nothing.
Why do you think he doesn't?
So, well, there's the official reason, and then I think the real reason. The official reason is that they will say it's better than, it's better than nothing to at least have a connection with the government of China, and therefore we're able to spread some form of Christianity better than nothing. Unofficially, I think it's because
he's a commie.
I think it's because there is an affinity there with communism, and it comes from the radical liberation theology of South America.
Definitely, where he comes
from, Argentina, even though he's from an Italian family, and we've seen this throughout his papacy. So funny, I didn't even plan to talk about this.
I know, I didn't either,
we went through like 100 topics, but
this we're going to do all 100 tonight.
We've seen this reflected numerous times throughout his speaking, his writing, where he's instituted a new form of doctrine for the church called synods.
Right.
And the synods are these sort of summits of people from different areas of the world will come to the Vatican and then show their and it's all about cultural inclusion,
right,
and cultural awareness and
communism,
cultural tolerance, but what it's really doing, and then they say, well, we need to work on the doctrine of the church so that we're able to become more in tune with the cultural mores of these areas. And so there, we're still doing the official reason, right? And so the effect of which is chipping away at the actual Christian teachings that the doctrine is supposed to be upholding in the first place. Because I'm all for cultural inclusion, but if you're coming to the Vatican, then the goal ought to be that you are being culturally included in understanding the Bible and understanding the teachings of Christ as reflected through the magisterium and the doctrine, et cetera, et cetera. That should be the goal. Fine, great. Convert the world, all for it, right? That's the goal. That was actually the mission statement, right? Go forth and spread the good news. However, it seems as though in this case, the good news is being put on the shelf, and what's being pushed are these radical ideas, not so much in the social realm, but I think he's getting there, but when it comes to economics, and particularly in the United States, you have a group called Catholic Charities, which has become so corrupted and so involved with the child trafficking along the southern border, coming up from Mexico and Venezuela.
Thank you for
and the
bringing
rest,
that up.
that this is something, and I say this as a Catholic, right? I can criticize somebody else's religion and criticize some other group. No, but I'm accountable. These are the people that are accountable to me. So as a Catholic, I have to be the first one to call out. So if there's a bad priest, guess what? Lock him up, right? Lock him up right now. Don't hide it. Lock him up. And if people were covering for that guy, lock him up. And if there's a charity that's involved in child trafficking and they're getting government subsidies, then you know what? We got to lock them up too.
Yeah, it's the same in Iran too. I heard that the Christianity is exploding in Iran.
Well, and in Iran it's even worse because they'll do far worse than lock you up over there for being Christian. And it's amazing because you'll go to, and at the same time though, you'll come to some of these churches in America and they'll say refugees welcome, and they'll put a crescent moon, like an Islamic symbol, up at a church. And it's like refugees welcome, okay, but you mean welcome to learn about the Bible, right? That should be the point. But what would happen if you then, say, went to Iran and tried to put up a cross and said,
Or Star of David.
you know, or Star of David, and tried to say, welcome to come here and learn about our religion. Yeah, see what happens.
See
Yeah,
about
your
that
head's
one
gone.
one world religion that the Pope is so invested in, the Chrislam.
Well, when I was in, just a quick story. So when I was in China, we sometimes I would get bored, and it turns out that the Iranian consulate was actually right across the street from the American consulate, and so I found their phone number, and every once in a while, if I was bored, if not much to do, so I would prank call the Iranian consulate like all the time to mess with whoever's answering the phone there, and I'd be like, hello, yeah, I want to come in there. I want to get a visa for Iran. Yeah, I'm really excited. They're like, what do you want a visa for? Oh, business visa. Why, what's your business? We're selling Bibles, so we're just gonna come down there. Got a huge cask. I got some of them with me. If you guys want to buy some, we're gonna come down. And they're like, what are you saying? What are you saying? They're like, and then of course you'd get. Then you wait. They're like, wait a minute, and then of course someone else would come on the phone like, yes, come down right away. And then click.
Can I ask a question? What you guys are talking about the Pope sounds like he's been infiltrated. I don't know. You guys know.
So we
this better.
talk. So
who is the Pope?
Dr.
Well, a
Taylor
lot of
Marshall.
people, Vigliano.
Vigano, Archbishop Vigano.
Yeah, I love listening to him and
He's
what
amazing.
he says.
He's
Isn't
wonderful.
he great?
He's wonderful. He's an incredible one.
What is he like blowing the whistle on? I
And
don't know. I don't follow
been
that.
He's
blowing the
just
whistle on the
brilliant.
infiltration. And so the best book on this, another Texan, by the way, Dr. Taylor Marshall wrote the book Infiltration, where he goes all the way back to the seminaries, to the 1960s, to the way that essentially when the Marxists understood that every time they had tried to take out the church, because you look in every revolution, right? Every communist revolution that we see, in the Spanish Revolution, when they tried it in Mexico, when they tried with the French Revolution, which was actually a proto-Marxist revolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Russian Revolution, who do they target first? It's the church.
Yeah.
It's always the church, right? In
Right.
Spanish Revolution, they're raping nuns on the altar, they're murdering priests, burying priests alive, just complete insanity.
So this is the actual Marxist playbook.
And but they kept failing. Obviously, they fail in Spain. Franco comes in, takes over, wipes out the communists. France, Napoleon comes in, restores the church. Russia, obviously, they were successful, but then 80 years later, it falls.
Putin restored the church.
And so there's been a lot of churches that were restored in. Now that's Eastern Orthodox, but there have been a lot of churches restored in Russia, in Belarus. Now in Ukraine, this has become a huge issue right now
they're
under Zelensky
arresting.
because if you're on the wrong, because there was a schism that took place. We're jumping around, but there was a schism that took place a few years before the current war, where the local Orthodox Church broke away from the wider Moscow patriarchate of the church, and so they basically labeled anyone who refused to join the new Ukrainian version. Guess what they named him? A Russian agent.
Yeah.
And so, we might laugh about getting labeled a Russian agent in the United States, but over there, if you're a Russian agent, jail. Yeah. Straight to jail. And that's so if it's you could be a priest, you could be a parishioner, you could be whatever you are. If you're too much involved with that church, and it could be the church that your family's been going to for 100 years.
Here's something that I
want
to say that people don't know, because this is really censored stuff. But Jewish Marxists, in every revolution, their number one target is religious Jews. And in the Bolshevik Revolution, the Jewish Marxists, that's who they go after. And in Spain and in all those countries where there's a Marxist overthrow, the Marxist Jews actually enjoy destroying religious Jewish communities. That's just how it is.
Well, when you have
We're not supposed to say it because, you're called, it's just all mind control. But the major target of Marxist Jews is religious Jews.
Well, and so, and you'll see religious communities, and devout religious communities always be targeted first,
Right.
Because this is your backstop to Marxism is someone who's devoutly religious.
Right.
Because if you have religion, then you believe in a higher power. You have a belief in God.
Yeah, that isn't the state.
So
Yeah,
Marx,
higher than
the
the
state, the government, the party, this can never become your soul consuming desire.
Well, because
you won't accept
soul.
the program. You won't accept the program.
Well, because you have a soul that's
Yes.
living and connected to something other,
So you'll never
above
accept
us.
the program. So what Dr. Marshall has written out in Infiltration, just to go back to that, when you talk about the church, is the Catholic Church, that it because they kept crashing against the doors of it and never getting anywhere, then they realized, okay, what if instead of attacking it from without, what if we attack it
Infiltrate.
within? Go to the seminaries, go to the priests, and not all the priests, right? But the ones in positions of power, key positions, and then work your way up the chain to get priests that pervert the doctrine, that twist the teachings to the point where you've essentially made it as if Jesus was a Marxist.
Right. That's called liberation theology.
And that's liberation theology.
And I saw that, I saw that happening in America. Like, pretty soon it was every pulpit was talking about that. And it never was that way before.
No.
I have really studied that.
Well, and it's become a way to take some of the teachings of Jesus, where he talks about charity and talks about feeding the poor, clothe the naked, etc.
Eye of the needle.
And taking the right the camel through the eye of a needle, and taking that and forming almost a new Christianity from these sparse quotes. And then any idea of sin, any discussion of hell, that's all.
Or personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility, accountability, the parable of the talents, to whom much is given, much is asked, right? You have been given talents, therefore you must go out and use those talents for the greater glory of God, but then also for society. So if you're just, if you're not using your talents to become successful and for the glory of God and to give back to your society, then you what are you doing, right? Then you're just Marxist. Then the state has just come in and presupposed all of this, and so they've blended this all together because and Solzhenitsyn talks about this, where it's the essential difference, and this is something that, and here's the thought crime, where what capitalism and communism have in common is that they're both centered on materialism.
Right.
They're both centered on consumption. Whereas, who controls consumption, who controls materialism, etc. Whereas Christianity, where theology is centered, is spiritual.
Right.
It's spiritual.
It's also about transcendence, personal transcendence.
Hopefully.
Yeah. About self-improvement
Right.
and continual self-improvement.
That's right.
And transcendence, which, none of that Marxist crap's about that.
No.
And also, I was telling you, it's so funny because feminism has been so perverted, but originally in the 60s, feminism was the death of Marxism because feminism was a radical analysis of Marxism. Calling Marxism chauvinism because it never took into account the unpaid labor of women into factoring in the whole philosophy of Marxism. So it was a sexist and chauvinistic philosophy, which the French feminists proved. They never counted in women's free labor. So I thought that was great at the time, and I was like, great, it's just another scam. It's just another scam, and it's even a worse scam because it is based on stuff that people will never do. And when they did the Bolshevik Revolution, they always said, well, once people learn the right way, the state will fall away.
Right.
Well, that's
right.
never going to happen.
No.
People are never going to not be greedy.
Right.
Well, so this, and I don't know if you want that could be a good segue into.
It's whatever you want, man. I'm with you.
So this was studied. This was studied by the guy by the name of John Calhoun, and he and I know, Jake, you have the article there they were called the Calhoun Mouse Utopia experiments, and back in the 50s and 60s in Maryland. And he created various universes of utopias where the experiment was, if you create a society using mice because Marxism is about what equal distribution of resources and equal access to resources. So full resources, everyone's got full food, everyone's got full water, everyone's got access to everything. You will remove the competition for resources. This, by the way, is the reason that in Marxism, the abolition of private property is the essential basis of Marxism.
Right, no private property.
In fact, in Mandarin, the word for communism is called 共产主义. So 共产literally translates to public property. Public property. So the word communism in Chinese, when you say Chinese Communist Party, you're actually it's directly translated as the public property party. So all property will be public owned by the public. So the abolition of what they call the competition for resources is thus defined as a utopia. Calhoun studies this. Now, I don't know if he was necessarily trying to criticize or prove Marxism when he did this, but he was trying to study human nature. And
right.
I'll just put the picture up. You know it better than this article, so you can just...
Yeah, and essentially, it just turned into a complete apocalypse. Complete insanity. Because you had gang warfare that broke out very quickly. The stronger mice, the alpha male mice turned into essentially gang leaders that controlled all the food nodes. Right. The female mice became they were abused, raped, force mated, etc. by these males, and then you had the lesser males. So the lesser, and I'm paraphrasing. There's so much detail in this. We could go into it you could do a whole hour just on this. And he kept trying different iterations. He said, what if I give them apartments because this kept happening. This kept happening inside these utopias that everyone started fighting. And then you had the lesser males. So the lesser males broke into two groups. One, it's sort of like honestly, what you'd call them today are like the incels, right? Involuntary celibates, where they can't mate and they don't have access to the food. And so they would just sort of congregate in the middle, and then eventually they'd become so enraged that they would join together and mass attack the gang leaders, and then eventually tear them apart. But then they would just start killing everyone because they'd be so full of rage. But then you had another form of lesser male, and these were the ones that Calhoun actually dubbed the beautiful ones. And the beautiful ones spent all of their days primping and cleaning themselves.
Metrosexuals.
Becoming, really focused on their appearance. It would only be around each other. They would, attempt to mate with each other sometimes, and they'd have slight access to food, but they wouldn't even bother with women. They wouldn't, this is where we get the phrase behavioral sink from, because they didn't understand the behaviors required to maintain a society, because they had been raised by mice in these universes in these utopias that had never established functional family units. And so they didn't know how to be a functional father, a functional spouse, a functional mate, a functional mother, because they had never had them in the first place. And so you get this huge behavioral sink. It almost a perpetual adolescence kind of sets in, and basically just ends with and this is what's amazing. It ends with a complete breakdown of mating. Mm-hmm. And so when you have the complete breakdown of mating, you have no more children, and then with no more children, the utopia falls apart. And this happened time after time after time. No matter what he did, he couldn't stop it from happening.
I have a question. Was he trying to create a utopia or study a utopia?
Yes.
So he wasn't trying to prove Marxism.
No, it had nothing to do with that.
Utopia is the worst thing in the world.
It is.
And it
it's
turns
like
out,
right there with democracy. It's mob rule.
And so it turns out that we have this innate nature that can be engaged, activated, or suppressed. And he actually, what Calhoun, the phrase that he referred to it was that when you have this full access to resources as they did, and then but it resulted in a breakdown of the family. And he couldn't understand at first why this would occur, and it kept happening throughout these generations, just a complete breakdown of the cohesive family unit. And what he referred to it was spiritual death.
Yeah, that's about right.
And it was death of the spirit. So your spirit dies, and then if it only takes a couple generations for eventually the entire society, once you've all experienced this, you have no idea how to raise children because you were not raised by people who understood how to raise children. And mice, right? We're talking about mice still, right?
Yeah, sure.
No, but
Yeah,
it's
and
definitely
because you look at our society today, and then you start realizing,
it's the
wait a minute,
eradication of the male,
are
the
we
father.
living in this?
It's the eradication of the father. This is what I think.
Me too.
And that's what's targeted. They remove the father. Every revolution, what they do is they go in and they take the men and they make them go work somewhere else, so that it's a woman-centered culture. And then they have access to the children, which is what they're always after, for slaves or whatever, slave labor. And they just keep doing it, and nobody ever puts that together, that when you remove the father from the culture and the home, it just results in slavery.
And so what they're doing though is they're supplanting the father with the state. So the state becomes a sort of supplement for dad. And so the state provides for you, the state protects you, the state grants you safety, the state adjudicates disputes.
But the state also abuses you.
Teaches you, and then eventually...
Yeah, like I said, it's like a creepy stepfather. Is what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, creepy stepfather.
It's not a good dad.
No. Well, this is what the state is offering. But you actually said it before, because there's one thing the state will never offer. Love.
Yeah.
Right. And that is the essential difference between, and I'm not going to target stepdads, but there will always be this essential difference between the love of a father for his own child than the love of the state, or the love of the state, the actions of the state towards its subjects. Right. This is how you create subjects.
Right.
And so for men. So what do you do with the men? The men become emasculated. The men become
pretty nice,
the beautiful ones. The men become focused on
prisoners,
primping. And others, for the men who become belligerent, you lock them up. You don't give them any outlets. And so for young men, they're told that if you start acting as masculine, well, that's toxic. And if you get angry about it, then you get, well, it starts with like bully culture, right? That, you're being a bully, so now you're in detention, now you're put away, now you're kicked out of the school. And then now you've got your school to prison pipeline.
Absolutely.
Because you can't continue to go through school. So, and depending on the area, you're committing behaviors because you're told there's no other outlet. You're not given another outlet
for the rich people's wars.
So you join them, and you're seeing this in Ukraine right now. You're seeing, to an extent, you're seeing it in Russia, that you become cannon fodder. Actually, the Russian phrase for that, I forget the Russian word for it, but Tanya taught me. It translates to cannon meat. Cannon meat.
It's more accurate.
Infantry is a Swedish word that means infants.
Yeah.
So that's what they thought of the people that they were sending to fight their war.
Well, and that's the thing. It's when a war is fought, it's predominantly it's 18 to 24-year-olds. It's children. They're started by old men and they're fought by young men. Right. Yeah. And that's always been the game all the way back, that your kids are going to go and you're told that this is for the good of the country and this is for the good of our society. We have to fight on or else the country will be gone. We have to keep fighting. But what it really is, it's oligarchs that fighting for control over land, over resources,
women and children,
whatever, all of it. Farmland, always another huge
ports.
Target of Marxism.
The Chinese own all our ports.
Of course.
Oh my God, people in this country, let's talk about...
They own the Panama Canal.
I know. For $1, didn't they get it for $1?
They got a sweetheart deal, complete sweetheart deal. They went in, so we gave it back to Panama,
Carter.
And then Panama didn't have the ability to really maintain it. So China came in and said, "Oh, well," and we know that China has used the.
They said 1,500 Americans died building that.
Of course.
And then they just give it.
Of course, the canal fever, and McCain ended up being born down there. John McCain. And we give it back to Panama. But so what China does with their debt trap diplomacy, they go around the world and they build these massive infrastructure projects. They go to Africa and build a railroad. They go to they go to Southeast Asia and they build an airport.
It's like what we do.
But then with which of course
We
they learned
just
it from
blow shit
they
up.
learned it from us, and then
we build it
learned
too.
it from the British. Originally,
British.
now we just blow stuff up. And then, but with Panama, well, they already had the mega project. So they say, hey, you need to upkeep this thing. You need to maintain this thing. All right, we'll finance it for you. We'll take care of the port for you. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We got you, Panama. Don't worry. That's in our hemisphere.
Right.
Yeah.
That's in our hemisphere, a giant canal, one of the most important canals for trade in the entire world. Right. And I'm not saying this with like my Navy officer hat on, but it's just one of the most important things that America ever did on the face of the planet.
Right.
And we just threw up our hands and gave it away.
We like, really, we are like totally suicidal.
It is complete suicide. Well, it's suicide in the name as a country. What we've committed is suicide in the name of an international global system, whereby in our goals are not the goals of creating a strong country and a strong nation and strong patriots. Our goals are creating a consumption culture where the goods that are built in the factories of China are then brought in, consumed by our people. So we become a market. But Western capital, Western finance, Western leaders. This was by the way the deal that was struck after Tiananmen Square with the Chinese Communist Party. That when instead of debanking them and deplatforming them and breaking away and decoupling, no, we went all in on China. And this is when the deal was struck. This is Bush 41, Bush Senior, when he sent General Scowcroft over there. After June 4, 1989, that's Tiananmen Square. He sends Scowcroft. We could have knocked the Chinese Communist Party over with a feather.
I know.
The next week, we could have knocked them over. And you notice what happened all around the rest of the world. Every other communist party, except Cuba, every other communist-controlled state fell. Right, Poland goes first with solidarity with the ports.
Russia.
So Poland goes first, and then the wall comes down. Then Russia's a couple years later. Romania, Hungary, etc.
You think that was part of the deal?
And so they all go down. But which one stayed?
China.
Which one stayed was China. Right, so China stays.
So it's like the big fat rats that control the food supply.
Right, so we make a deal with them. We make a deal with China to say, all right, and when I say we, I mean our oligarchs,
right?
Our leaders. We say,
Kissinger.
Here's what we're going to do. Oh, Kissinger's a huge part of this. That Western capital is going to finance the whole thing. We're gonna write all the checks. Western IP, so our products, our technology, our pharmaceuticals, our biotech, all of it is going to get made over there. We provide that. You provide the slave labor. You provide the manufacturing. You provide the inputs. And so what we're going to do is, guess what? We don't need to build things in Chicago anymore, in Detroit, in the Midwest, in the South. We don't need any of that. We'll send all of that over to China.
Made in China.
And you guys will do it. We'll reap all the rewards. We'll split the rewards with you. And well, what happens to the people of this country? Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares? Right? So
it's so evil.
And as an example of this, the character
They'll keep voting for us.
The character that you played on your show, that type of world, that type of job, that type of security, working at the factory for George Clooney, it doesn't exist anymore. It just, and certainly not at that level. To be able to provide for a family in a large house like that.
Yeah, I felt like I was telling the story of the destruction of America.
It's true.
You were.
It's true.
And on the reboot, you did the same thing.
On the reboot, it was a requiem for the Roseanne show because, it was the systematic breakdown of anybody who had their own business.
And it was completely deliberate, and it was done on purpose, and it was done for money, and it was done for power, and it was greed, and it was done so that the elites of the United States, the elites of the Communist Party, the elites around the world, Western Europe to some extent, were all able to plug into this system, and today we call this system globalism. And the people who lost were the people that you depicted on that show, the people, the stories that
Yeah.
you told, the millions of Americans, not just in Chicago, not just the Connors, but the Connors were everyone.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were the voice, the champion for these people, and then you started to come back. They made the biggest mistake of all was to give you that platform again.
Yeah.
They made a huge mistake.
made a big
huge
mistake.
because it was, reboots had been
I
kind
don't
of.
even know why they begged me.
Well,
But then when I got there, it was like, hey, wait a minute. And then they were like, hey, we might have made a mistake. And then they started to monitor my Twitter feed.
Yes.
And then they monitored everything I said and
Social
did.
credit, basically. Like
Yeah.
fucking China.
And
because you showed the plight of the American worker, the American family, a family that was not diverse, a family that was not woke, a family that wasn't interested in equity. You were the anathema to everything.
well, when
that-
I came back, we were a diverse family. I wanted to have a black granddaughter.
That's true.
because I
And
have
there was a
a
trans
black.
kid, wasn't
I
there?
have a black godson who's added so much to my life. I mean, he's 28 now, but I've had him in my life since he was 2, and maybe even 1. But he's added so much to my life. I really wanted to have that conversation because most working class people. Working class is the most integrated class in America, and I really wanted to have that,
So Eric Hoffer, who they call
I love him.
They call him the working class philosopher, and his book True Believer is just such an amazing book. And he says he said this is what Marx got wrong about the working class. He said the working class are oppressed, the working class are downtrodden, the working class will eventually rise up and overthrow this is Marx, right? They will overthrow the oppressors, and every system is oppression until it has been overthrown. And what Eric Hoffer, who was a longshoreman in San
Yeah.
Francisco, understood about the working class, he said the working class don't care about that stuff because the working class is too busy working.
Yeah.
They're too busy working. They're too busy raising their families, trying to do the right thing, trying to put food on the table, and that's what you showed.
Yeah.
That's This was the multimedia expression of what Eric Hoffer wrote about
Yeah, I loved
in the
him.
50s. That you were depicting and not showing it in an easy way, but showing the struggles of a working class family in Chicago. And this was and at that time it wasn't threatening, but when it came back, it was so threatening to the programs that are being run now in the United States that they had to take you out. That was not a random act. That
No, it
was
was
a
coordinated.
hit.
Yeah.
That was
No,
a
I knew
coordinated
it
hit.
too. It was the first thing I realized was that their president, whatever she was their, I don't want to say, but their president, and she was talking to the advertisers like by the third show, and she told the advertisers, the show is not because the pilot had a Hillary hater and a Trump hater in the same family. They still loved each other.
Which you can't show. You cannot show.
No, they were all upset about that. But she said, well, the show's not going to be political anymore. It just was the pilot. And I thought, who told her that? She never talked to me about that. I don't know who told her that.
Yeah,
Wow.
check this out, Jack. She had done the show. It had been a huge success. And it was, are we not allowed to name her, Channing?
No, we're not.
The
gonna
president
name
of ABC did an article saying that next season will be different. Never talked to her, never talked to the showrunners. She took
She
it
might have
owners.
talked to Sarah Gilbert.
But who was upset about this?
her.
Well, no,
because she
a
thought
lot of
that-
people
Were the
were.
advertisers actually upset?
No, they had
Of course,
24 million
canceled my
views.
show before any advertisers pulled out. But she
Right.
was upset about it because she was a friend of Michelle Obama and
Well,
Valerie Jarrett.
there you go.
Okay, so anyway, I was really upset about that because I thought, well, she's cutting my throat. And then she started cutting my throat every week. And when I found out that, the day I found out, I'm like, hey, when are we going back to, when are the writers going to start? I called the head writer that I hired. And he said, oh, the writers are already back, Roseanne. They want you to come in and say hi. Well, I was the center of the writers. I ran the writers' room.
Right.
And I knew then that they had stolen my show. that was the night I sent the tweet. And the tweet was, I did think Valerie Jarrett was Iranian, and because she is from Iran.
She's born there.
Yeah. And I had no idea she was African American. No idea. She don't look African American. Excuse me. But anyway,
I'm so glad you're finally talking about
my
this.
tweet was like, and her family does run a whole Muslim Brotherhood newspaper and everything, and I do think she's a Jew hater. And so I was like, okay, you took my show, take this tweet.
So you're saying, though, that they had basically taken your show even before the tweet.
Yes, that's why I wanted...
the very day.
So that's because I
got all drunk and went, fuck you.
Because that's not the narrative. The narrative is, it was because of the tweet. But you're saying that the setup, and based on what I have been saying, that they were planning to phase you out even before that.
Yes.
Yeah, they had taken my show, and I realized it on Labor Day. So I was like, okay, well, here's a tweet for you. And I woke up at 1 a.m. and I was really like, I do pray and meditate, and I really do feel like, I felt like God was waking me up. And here comes a picture of Valerie Jarrett and that character from that movie. And they looked exactly alike. And so I captioned it. I captioned a meme. And so they said, but I put, the caption I put was Muslim Brotherhood plus this movie about the takeover of America.
Muslim Brotherhood plus VJ. No,
I said Muslim Brotherhood plus this movie had a baby, and it's Valerie Jarrett's Iran deal. Yeah. That's what it was. And I went, fuck you, you took my show, I'm going to leave you with a tweet. I knew they were going to fire me.
I got to step in. I'm so happy because people don't understand your mindset that night, and there's been all...
I was drunk.
No, hold on. The important thing is, and I'm going to be very, very smart here, my mother didn't have the team that she has now. So when that night happened and she sees the president of ABC basically saying, oh, next year we're not going to be political, when my mother is famous for being political. That Roseanne show, it's not just a reboot. It's the first 9 seasons were always political. First Gay Kiss. You name it. I'm not even going to get into it. So they basically, without talking to her, said, we're going to take her show. That night, I know my mother, and we've never talked about this, but I know you, and I know that night you were like, I'm going to fucking bring the whole thing down.
No, I did, because I'm like, I'm not going back there. I'm not going to go back there and play Happy June Clipper.
I wish you would have admitted. I told you to admit this the day after the tweet, because it's actually a brilliant sabotage. And I still think it makes you a victim. So maybe that's why you didn't do it, because you were like, but that's what you did. It was like, fuck you, you're going to take my life's work?
Fuck you, I'm going to say the truth about Obama and Valerie Jarrett's anti-Semitic Iran deal.
Thank you.
And what they do, and what they mean for America. So they want to lock up all the black kids. They're trying to pretend like they're on the black kids' side, but they're not.
But you knew when you sent that tweet you were going to get in trouble. Yes?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all thank you. That makes it so much more.
And then
what's the word? It's not based anymore. It's
I didn't think I was going to get in that much trouble because I thought she was white. I did think she was white.
I did too.
And when they called me up and Johnny goes, they're saying you're a racist. I go, Muslim isn't a race. Mm-hmm. That was what I said first. I go, Muslim ain't a race. It's a religion. And they go, no, Valerie is African American. I go, huh? She's born in Iran. They go, yeah, she's African American. I go, what? I'm darker than her.
Yeah.
And then the ABC called me up and the guy goes, what possible excuse can you have for the egregious thing you've done? I go, I thought she's white. And he goes like this. And then I go, hey, don't cancel my show. And he goes, well, we'll have to see how the community reacts. And in my mind, I'm like, what community? The baby blood drinking community? You son of a bitch. But I didn't say that. I go, what? And I didn't say nothing. I go, well, all right. 20 minutes later, it was canceled. And they called me a racist, even though they knew. I told them I thought she's white. They called me a racist anyway. ABC.
It was like their Jan 6. It was brilliant. They were brilliant.
Yeah, like, let's go to Jan 6.
Well, before we do that, I'll just say...
And then Bob Iger, the president of ABC, goes, they're so stupid. He goes, the first call I made was to Valerie Jarrett, and Michelle Obama said, get her off the air. And when they did, Obama called and congratulated them, because they were really afraid that some Jew had said they were anti-Semites, and they are. Let's leave it there. Let's go to Jan 6.
I'll just say this. It's about time somebody finally started talking about the connections between Barack Obama and the Muslim Brotherhood.
Fuck yeah.
Because
they was at the White House every other week.
They're at the White House. And go and look at what they did in Egypt.
I know.
Go and look what they did in Egypt.
Look what they did. Look what they did in Iran.
Egypt, who had been an ally of the United States, Mubarak, who had been an ally of the United States, and they go in, and this is right after Libya. They were doing Libya at the same time.
Look what they did to Libya. Now they're slave markets.
They go in and blow up Libya. Gaddafi gets killed.
They blow up a dam that pulls water to Africa at hospitals.
Because you know what Gaddafi was doing? Because Gaddafi was...
He wanted off the dollar.
He wanted to get off the dollar, and he was going to introduce the African dinar, which would have been a gold-backed currency for the African Union.
They hate
to get
that
off
shit.
the U.S. dollar. And let me tell you something. You think the U.S. military can't get, we can't beat Afghanistan, etc. Watch what the U.S. military does when somebody wants to get off the U.S. dollar
we know
and wants
what
to get
they
off the
do.
petrodollar
Good
system.
fucking
Although the Iraqi dinar just came out.
So they go, well, that's still under, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Because Iran's very much in Iraq right now. So they do Libya. They go into Syria. They massively go into that.
Massacre
people. And they call it Operation Timber Sycamore. By the way,
Obama droned brown people every 20 minutes in the Middle
Libya,
East.
by the way, that's how we get a little thing called Benghazi that ended up getting, beyond all the other stuff, you also got Benghazi out of the whole deal. Then they start shipping Manpad missiles. They're shipping the arms. So Libya is to get the revolution going there. Then they go to Syria, and they say, okay, great, we're going to do it to Syria too. And we're going to blow up all this stuff. And they say, all right, well, who are we going to work with? Oh, we'll call them moderate jihadis. So we'll call them moderate jihadis. And anyone go look this up, Operation Timber Sycamore. And Trump, which Trump ended, by the way. Trump ended in 2017.
That's why I love Trump.
And then the moderate jihadis, they took all the missiles and they took all the Hiluxes and everything else. And they said, well, half of them went and fought Assad. And then the other half said, hey, let's start our own thing and let's call it ISIS.
Yeah.
And let's turn that and let's
ISIL,
right. And then we'll turn that against, and we'll start taking over this part of Syria, and we'll take over part of Iraq, and then we'll go in, and then boom, now you've founded ISIS. And then what did they do in Egypt? They overthrew Mubarak, and who got put in power in Egypt? For almost 2 years, the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right, Obama's
the Muslim
pals,
Brotherhood
Valerie
got put
Jarrett's
exactly
families,
in power.
Friends. And that's what they did in Iran,
until
too.
finally the Egyptian military came in and said, we are not going to let these terrorists run our country anymore. And they locked them all up and banned the party.
But look at America, the Muslim Brotherhood in America.
Well, and they will go through with the Department of Homeland Security, and there are Obama officials there. There were Obama officials there. Some of these people who are still kind of squirreled around in these areas, going through, putting out the sensitivity training. They say it's just a sensitivity training of these Muslim Brotherhood operatives that are going around to police forces, that are going around to all sorts of areas to say, well, no, we need this room, we need this. But what's interesting, by the way, because there's something going on.
What's really interesting is I know so many Muslims, they hate the Muslim Brotherhood because they know what they've done in the Middle East.
Well, and I was going to say as well that that you're starting to see in the Muslim community, that the way they're reacting to the trans agenda, to the woke agenda, that suddenly they're getting switched on now, and
I love it.
And they're saying, and they'll come up. So this is why you'll see in some of the Dearborn, Michigan, and they're protesting what the school board's doing, and so you got Muslims and Christians suddenly united for the first time, I think, 700 years?
Yeah,
probably longer than that.
Yeah.
1300 maybe.
Yeah, 1300 years. Yeah, since 700 AD.
Yeah,
the first time. Actually united together. They say, yeah, we'll talk about Constantinople later. Right now, let's just protect the kids.
Yeah,
right now, let's just protect kids. Which is like, if you've got those two sides, that's like the Crips, like the ultimate Crips and the Bloods fighting. Who just have hated each other forever. But they say, you know what? We'll put that aside for a minute because we got to deal with these freaks first. That's what's going on.
I know.
And so you're exactly right that, and if it took your tweet and your sacrifice to at least get us to start talking about
because
this,
they said the next day that there was 2 million searches for Valerie Jarrett. Nobody knew who she was.
Of course somebody knew who she was.
But I've thought...
and she lives right next to him now.
I think she lived with him for a while. But
I
anyway...
think she's the one that murdered his chef.
Oh my God, Jake, you cut that out.
I've done it every episode.
She was on the other paddleboard.
Yeah, she was the other person on the paddleboard. Valerie Jarrett.
No, she was flying the drone that popped into him.
She was running the Federal Reserve in Chicago. Did you know that, for Mayor Daley?
I didn't realize that.
I did know that. She is so dirty that she owned Cabrini Green. That was her personal slum. And she was so dirty that Mayor Daley's Chicago, the dirtiest city and the dirtiest crime syndicate in America, actually took her slum away from her because she had children living there with no water and rats in the hall.
But this is what they did in so many of those cities, by the way. So many of the cities in the Midwest and on the East Coast, what they did was they took families that had lived there, like the Connors, families that had lived there for generations, these generational households, a lot of them immigrants, Polish, Irish, Italian. You see it in New York and Newark and Boston and in Philly and Chicago and Detroit. And they uprooted. They kicked all those families out, and they brought in slums, and they brought in projects, and they brought in all federal dollars, and that all comes in.
And that was nothing but slavery. They put black people back in slavery and put them from slums to prison. 1 in 4 black men in prison, which Kamala Harris was really good at. She locked up all the black parents whose kids didn't go to, show up at school every day. And now she's like, the vice president of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden is the hugest racist in the world.
He wrote the crime bill in 1994.
Yeah. And I mean, he's the president of the Democratic Party.
Well, you want to talk about a criminal syndicate.
Yeah, and they invented the KKK, the Democrats, but they have people under such incredible mind control that they can't see their way out of a paper bag. And I just feel sorry for black people. And my tweet was for black people.
Wow.
Because I just wanted them to wake up and see how they're being used because Obama never did nothing for black people. Michelle Obama was kicking black people out of the hospitals and sending them to Skid Row.
Well, that's exactly right.
It makes me sick.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and Joel Gilbert actually exposed that in the movie on her. I just had him on my show.
What's that movie called?
Human Events every day at 2 p.m. on Real America's Voice, which everyone should watch. But
what's that movie called? The Crying Game?
The Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
No, it was my joke.
They're so corrupt
that he went and interviewed people that had because she didn't live there. No, she didn't live in any of those
She was
areas.
raised in Jesse Jackson's house.
Yeah,
People don't know that.
She was raised in one of the nicest areas.
Mm-hmm.
And he interviewed the people that sold him the house because even her family got out of it and they used to call this stuff white flight. Remember they called it white flight? Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen Michelle Obama. She ain't white, right? It wasn't white flight. It was getting away from slums. It was getting away from crime. Right. It was getting away from
class,
all of this.
It's not race.
It's class in a sense, right? Because it's getting away from these government controlled zones
slavery
that have there's a phrase they use on this and it's called anarcho tyranny. Have you heard this phrase? Mm-hmm. So anarcho tyranny is you let the criminals, like the criminal class, you let them loose. And then you impose law on everybody else.
Right.
And why do they do that? They do that to keep down the middle class.
That's
because
right.
The middle class that realizes that, hey, wait a minute, why is all our money going to China? Why is all our wealth going to China? Why are these guys getting richer?
That's what they're doing with the immigrants, bringing in this MS-13.
Why are MS-13 getting imported? Why are Somalian gangs showing up in the middle of Ohio? Why are they just dumping people into the United States from the third world? And And so suddenly you start to ask these questions, and then people start forming, you go online and you have podcasts and you have people that start to form, whole political groups based around trying to solve something like this. Then Trump gets out and he makes it the subject of his his announcement speech when he came down the golden escalator. And they have to release the criminals because the goal is the crime. And we just published an op-ed.
That's exactly right.
We published an op-ed on humanevents.com, written by an author who goes by Raw Egg Nationalist. He's great. He's so great. But it's all, he's anonymous, but he says the crime is the point.
It is absolutely. It's control.
Keeps down the middle class because they release the criminals on you, and they use crime and violent crime particularly as a tool that you can lever it up, right? You can lever it up when you need more of it because the middle class gets a little bit too antsy. Then you increase the crime. Okay, now the middle class is hunkering down because we don't have time to do politics because our stuff's getting robbed, we're getting held up, we're getting carjacked in the middle of the city. Then when that quiets down, okay, then you can start taking the violent criminals, lock them up some more. But oh, by the way, if you've got a taillight out, if you're running an unlicensed, you don't have the right licensing for your business,
or over $600 on Venmo.
Yeah, you send over $600 on Venmo, you go to the IRS, then you're going to jail. And oh, by the way, if you tried to question the election results of 2020 and tried to actually positively challenge the election, then you're a criminal. You're indicted in Michigan. You're indicted in Arizona, which is coming.
Georgia.
You're indicted in Georgia. In Michigan, they are indicting. They indicted a woman. Her name is Rose Rook. She is 81 years old, of Paw Paw, Michigan. She is a MAGA granny. She is an 81-year-old woman, and she signed a piece of paper saying that I will be an elector for the state of Michigan if the courts and on January 6th it returns back and the Congress determines that Trump was the actual winner, then I would gladly be an elector. They're charging her with fraud.
Jesus Christ.
81 years old.
Disgusting.
Because this was the point of January 6th that we never, and they claim, oh, it was a riot, it was the worst thing in the world. It was a riot that the feds incited.
Yeah.
In order, and no one explains why. No one ever points out why was the riot incited.
Why?
And here's the reason, I'll tell you. The reason was that on January 6th, and they always play this clip of me and Steve Bannon from January 5th, and the committee and Pelosi's committee, and they're trying to put Steve in jail because he wouldn't testify to the committee, so they called it contempt. And then he said, well, wait a minute, you want me to give the information about my conversations with Trump when he was the president. And when Congress is trying to demand that information, what's that called?
Executive privilege.
Executive
privilege, because they're trying to get the information from Trump, but this has been held at Supreme Court that's executive privilege, that you can't get those conversations. So he legally, on the advice of lawyers, said, I can't agree to testify because of executive privilege. And they're saying, oh, well, he didn't claim executive privilege. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because he was the president. And the conversations with and then they said it doesn't matter, well, because Steve wasn't in the government. So what?
Yeah.
The president was, obviously. He's still the president. And they want to destroy the executive branch and all balance of the government. Of course. So they want to take away all of this in order to number one, make it as if Trump never was the president.
Right.
That it was an accident, it was an aberration, that it didn't happen. So anyway, when Steve says,
because Obama's ego is that out of control.
Of course. And so we know
psychopath.
And you wonder who's pulling the strings right now.
No, I know this is his third term.
You wonder who's pulling the strings, right? The problem is that Joe isn't exactly the best guy to run it from the top.
Well, Obama's not running it because Valerie Jarrett's Obama's brain, just like Cheney was Bush's brain. Karl Rove.
Cheney and Rove.
Yeah.
Cheney and
Rove. Same thing.
And so you end up,
and Susan. What's her name?
Rice,
yeah.
And so what we did, and they play this clip of Steve going, tomorrow, all hell's gonna break loose. And I'm sitting there and I go, it's gonna be historic.
Oh no.
It's gonna be historic. What we were discussing, and if you watch any of the episodes, and these are the old ones where like Steve's got like the long hair, we've all got the cans on, the big headphones. And we'd been sort of like living in the war room for like weeks on end at this point, that we were going to adjudicate the election from the well of the Senate.
Right.
And we were going to open up this debate at a scale and on a scale with a platform that no one had seen before. This wasn't going to just be Giuliani, and it wasn't just going to be a couple lawyers. It was going to be senators.
It was
gonna be
150 congressmen.
Right. And then a couple of senators, because you need both in order to challenge it. And then the riot started. And I was there that day. And I was coming down from the top of Capitol Hill, so walking down the hill on Constitution Avenue, walking down towards the National Mall. And I'm walking, it's myself, Raheem Kassam, and we were headed from where the war room is on Capitol Hill down, and Trump's still speaking at this point.
I know.
So Trump's still speaking, and we had head out because I was going to my studio, which was in a different building, but down the way there, and we're coming out, and as we round the corner, like I guess the crest of the hill on Capitol Hill, we see, I saw a lot of people with red hats. And I said, "Hey, there's a lot of people down there." And I think those are like Trump people. It's like MAGA people and MAGA
But
hats.
you were thinking, why aren't they listening to Trump?
And it confused me because I knew, because we had the feed going, and we could hear, we were still keeping an eye on it, but you have to get set up for your next shot, so you have to move to where, and we were going to the top of the building so we could get the look down to cover the march, and I couldn't understand. So why are these people here now? Because he's still speaking down at the ellipse, which is, and that's like a 35-minute walk. That's not a short walk. And then all of a sudden, as this is going, and I said that to him, and even before Raheem has the ability to look down and see it, we hear boom, boom, and that was the flashbangs that went up by the Capitol Police onto that crowd of people. And then that's the moment when all hell did break loose, but not with a debate in the Senate on the actual affidavits.
That's what they wanted to prevent,
the testimony. And so this is why they had to incite the riot, because they threw a riot to prevent the adjudication, to prevent the debate, to prevent it from being held in the will of the Senate. So what actually happens after all the dust clears? They meet later that night on January 6th. Mm-hmm. There's no debate is held, and they just ram it through. And Mike Pence, who was never asked to overturn the election. He lies every single time he says that. He constantly lies about this. He was never asked to overturn it. All he was asked to do was to rule that there was a dispute and send it back to the states. That's it. That's all he was asked to do. And then it goes back to the state legislatures, which the Constitution holds. That's it.
Can I ask a question?
All he had to do. So when he
lies... The Constitution says that if there are...
Can you get closer to the mic, Mo?
Oh, yeah. The Constitution says that if there are 150 members of Congress who are saying, wait, there's a lot of things that don't add up here.
They disputed the election.
Yeah, they disputed it. 150. That you need to have a meeting to discuss it, and that's what they rushed past it. They broke the constitutional laws.
Right, and so he says, I didn't have constitutional ability, it's BS.
Yeah, it's totally BS.
It's just not true.
I got to ask this question because I've always wanted this, and you seem to know a ton of shit. Pence had to be, at some point, Trump...
For the record, I was the guy who said Pence will never do it.
No, I know.
Pence will never do it.
But my point was,
he's in his head, he's the last Boy Scout, right? He's the last Boy Scout.
Well, but I knew he was dirty when he got the letter at the funeral, the Bush funeral.
You think?
Yeah, remember him and his wife got the letter at the Bush funeral.
They did all get letters.
What do you think that letter said?
Well, some people say it was condolences. Some people say it was something else.
You know what I heard it was,
and
it made sense to me. I've heard hundreds, because I'm always a nosy old fat Jewish lady sticking my nose in everybody's business. And everybody's told me a different thing. I talk to a lot of people, you know. And one guy who's high up, he told me, well, it was our promise to counter. I go, okay. And I saw all that. I could see that and everything, because I watch it over and over, their faces, especially Hillary and Michelle. And
it's the only time they're ever together. They're all together like that.
And so I've been looking at it for years and years, but I finally got it like 2 nights ago. It came in my head. It's a friggin' subpoena.
Allegedly.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing?
I think that's what it was. Because
Well, you know
remember Jeb Bush? He's like,
Well, you know what a lot of people think that Trump did, though?
What?
Which wouldn't, how baller would this be? There's a lot of people who think that after January 6th, so after January 6th, but up until January 20th, there's still 14 days where he was president.
that's when he did the.
There are people who think that during that time, he signed a secret pardon
Oh no, for who?
for himself.
Oh,
So a pocket pardon, which has been it's been a legal theory that
Oh, I never heard
has
this
been
one.
that's come up in legal circles. The question is, and it's never been tested at the Supreme Court. So the Constitution only says that a presidential pardon can't cover an impeachment of that president. So if Trump got impeached twice, he couldn't pardon himself from impeachment. You can't do that.
Right.
Clinton couldn't pardon himself from impeachment, Nixon, etc. But if Trump wanted to, he could have written himself, and some say there's some quotes from Eric Trump and other members of the family around the time that they heard that all he would have to do is write a letter to himself, right? And write himself a blanket pardon for anything that he did while he was in the office of the president for the presidency, because he knew that they were going to come after him for January 6th, that they were going to come after him for everything else. The Mar-a-Lago documents is part of this now. But if he wrote himself a blanket pardon, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't do that. And since January 6th and the documents both took place when he was still the president, that if he has a pocket pardon, he could play that in court.
oh,
and
maybe
it
that's
would-
what they're talking about, the Trump card.
And it would block everything that they're throwing at him right now, at least at the federal level. I guess here's what I would say is the danger of that, and the danger of some of these,
Theories.
not even theories. I like theories. I like when people try to figure out what's going on. I think that's
Yeah.
good. I think curiosity is good. I think it's
I do
natural. I think
too.
it's normal.
Of course.
But the danger of putting too much faith in it is that you think that someone is going to just swing in and the cavalry is going to come
Yeah,
and
that's
save
that
us.
book right there.
And you
they
get
don't.
people stringing along saying, "Oh, it's just 2 more weeks. It's just 2 more weeks." And by the way, Sean Hannity used to do this all the time. Remember TikTok? Remember TikTok with Sean Hannity? TikTok. Here it comes, sealed indictments. TikTok. The deep state's going to go down. TikTok. And
right.
and it never happened. And it
Well,
never
this
happened.
book-
And the problem is, and just to finish it, the problem is that it makes you passive. It
Right.
makes you
That's what that
pacifistic.
book says, yeah.
It puts you in a state of thinking that everything's taken care of, so you don't take action, so
Yeah.
you don't get involved in your elections, so you don't get involved in ballot operations, which we're going to
We
need to
have
do
to
in
get
2024. That you're not going to
That's
get involved
exactly right.
by wearing one of the cameras of James O'Keefe and catching the mules and catching some of these nefarious actors in 2024. And there's 3 cities that we need to focus on in 2024, and it's Atlanta, Georgia, it's Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it's Phoenix, Arizona. And if you can focus your energy, and Trump's being indicted in Atlanta, so Fulton County, that's Atlanta, so he's already going to be down there quite a bit. That if you focus on those 3 counties, they know those cities and the counties associated with them. They know that those are the 3 states that this entire election is going to come down to. The whole election will come
So
down.
it's not just the election, it's our entire country and all liberty and freedom
That's
in
right.
the world.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right, because they know that all they have to, and they know that we know, and they know that we know that they know, that, right, that it's all going to, because the electoral map is better for us right now because of the census, and we've had some movement, Florida, etc., that it's a very good map for Republicans. And so that's why they're going all in on these states, and they've kept all the COVID stuff on the books. Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia. You win those 3, you win the presidency, he comes back. All right, then we can actually start putting all of these plans into motion, all of them.
So what should we
I
be
think
armed
that the
with cameras or
Democrats
what?
hate it, huh?
what should we do? In
Well,
those three
I think you
states?
need offense and defense. I
But,
think
like,
you need both. I think
people,
so
because you said people are getting
so the cameras
docile. What
so the
can we do?
cameras so the cameras are defense, right? The cameras are part of your strong defense, your sting operations, your ability to catch people in the act of conducting illegal ballot harvesting operations, catching mules. This is part of that. And oh, by the way, active geo-tracking, right? So
Yes.
so you need to be conducting active geo-tracking around these ballot drop boxes so that it's not months later, it's not
Yeah, in real time.
weeks later, it's that. So if we have this 1 month voting, so it's voting month now, right? Because in so many of these states,
Right.
they've taken it away. And by the way, here's the thing, and I know conservatives don't like it. A lot of people don't like it. Just Americans don't like it in some areas because it's not the traditional way of voting. If that's the law, then we have to use it.
Yeah,
we
quit
have to
bitching
use
about
all
it
these
not being
tools.
fair and
like
Right.
we have
the
to
game.
use these tools. So we have to bring our A game.
Yeah.
So, but in that month, we need to be launching active geo-tracking of
Absolutely.
every single one of those drop boxes and having people on shift.
Absolutely.
On shifts, running cameras, and it doesn't even need necessarily, like, I maybe I'll talk to James about this, but, it doesn't even need to be someone necessarily always wearing the camera. You have a drone.
Right.
You have drone
Absolutely,
you have drone
drones.
Footage.
Absolutely.
You got a drone camera. You don't
Get the
stop the
young people
person.
doing it.
You don't stop the person, right? You don't block anyone from voting.
Just get evidence.
Ever blocking them, but get the evidence
Mm-hmm.
and get it in real time. And by the way, with the geo tracking, now I got your cell phone. The cell phone
Mm-hmm.
that's in your pocket that, oh, by the way, that your 501c3, your 501c4 that Mark Zuckerberg's paying for, they make you download the app on your phone. And so that app shows them that you actually went and ran your route and did your work, and that you went to one of these vote processing centers, and now you're going out to your Dropbox. Okay, great. So you have to have the app on you. So they're geo-tracking you because they're paying you based off of that. Guess what? We're going to buy the data in real time, and we're not going to come in with a documentary.
Should we be
months
saying
later.
this? Are we tipping our hand?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter at this point.
Okay.
Because it's all going to happen either way. Right. So we are going to do this in real time, and we're going to have cameras up on the drop boxes in real time. And I'm asking for 24 in these areas at least 24/7.
What about the machines?
That's the defense section. Lindell's got a plan.
I
for
saw
the machines
that. It's brilliant.
with where he's going to be
An app.
So he's got.
It'll tell you when the machines go
It's called.
online.
It's based on.
It's genius.
It's based on a military intelligence tactic called war driving. And in war driving, you use a laptop or an electronic device to go and suck in Wi-Fi signals. This is
genius.
data in motion versus data at rest. So data in motion over Wi-Fi is very easily accessible and very easily detected. This is why, by the way, they say never check your bank account on an open Wi-Fi. So if you're at a Starbucks, if you're at an airport, if you're at a McDonald's, never check your bank account there.
Oh, shit, I didn't know that.
Because if somebody's in there on the open Wi-Fi, unsecured Wi-Fi,
That's why I bought wallet
no, that's
have it,
real.
but
That's
I check on my phone.
with the
that's
RFD.
but it doesn't matter if it's on your phone. If your phone is on their
Wi-Fi.
on the open Wi-Fi, so when it's on your phone, that's data at rest.
Right.
But now they're not hacking your phone. They're getting it through the
Well, it's
open
like a
Wi-Fi.
pipeline. Yeah, they
right.
just pull
They're
from
getting
the
it through the open. So they're getting it down. It's actually upstream as it comes to your phone.
So what's Lindell doing?
So what he's doing is disintermediating
It's an
that
app.
to an app and a device to detect if the machines are connected to the internet, which would totally blow up what he says is the claim that they're not connected. Right. So he's going to be So he's focused on that, and he's all in on that.
I loved it.
And then we need the offense. And the offense needs to be this. In those areas, in every area where it's possibly legal, we need
Ballot harvesting.
Well, in some states you can't do harvesting, but in some states it's chasing. In some states it's harvesting. In some states it's chasing early voting. In states where they've legalized it, obviously, that's what I'm talking about. In states where they've legalized it, these three and any other where it's legal, we need to be all in. And if it's one of the states where else it's legal, like in California, what they did in Orange County in California, what the conservatives started doing, because in Orange County, this was where the Dropbox system first began. They first started doing Dropbox and mail-in ballots. It was all in, and ballot harvesting was all in Orange County, California. And then it spread throughout the rest of the state of California. So the conservatives, the have had more time to realize how to fight back there. They went in and they found there's provisions in the California law for what they call independent ballot collection. So independent ballot collection can be essentially function as an unofficial drop box. So an unofficial drop box. So guess who started putting up unofficial drop boxes? The churches.
Oh, boy.
Put your unofficial, say, hey, when you show up at church this Sunday, by the way, we've got 3 services. Don't forget your ballot.
Genius.
Don't
I
forget
told you
your
it
ballot.
was about religion.
Right in the back of the church. They sued them. The Democrats lost their minds when this was going on. They filed every lawsuit under the sun. They brought in their top Mark Elias, like the top Democrat.
He's the devil.
Just bulldog fighter. Put him in. They went down in flames.
Wow.
They all went down because they used the law, the Democrats' own law, against them. And so I'm talking
Genius.
ballot drop boxes.
We're going to play their game.
Put them in churches. Put them in outside of gun stores. Put them outside of country music. If Trump comes in with a rally, you put them there. Any place it is legal
Where
to
people
do
are
this,
working,
where
as
you
conservative with
need
jobs.
the drop boxes there, or you call them collection sites, and then you collect and then you get them in. We need to start thinking like them.
Yeah.
And if we embrace this,
We also need to cheat, too.
If we
No,
no,
I mean, we should.
No, then we'll get caught. We're not gonna be like
Only
them.
in New Jersey. And I'm sorry, right, to the folks who say, but is that moral? They'll say, but is that moral? Is that the way we should do things? Is that way that we ought to do things?
Step off and shut up.
Yeah.
We gotta win.
We gotta win.
Yeah.
You gotta win. And
That's why I say we should cheat.
if you are,
We don't need to cheat.
if your principles
do.
cause you to lose, then maybe those aren't good principles.
That's
because
exactly
you got to
right.
fight fire with fire.
Let me
Because
say this. This is
a
very
spiritual
important.
war. This is a spiritual war.
This
Mom's
is
never been
a
interrupted.
God
This is
war.
cool.
And this is very important because
Look at the mic.
Anomaly told me about this book, New Lies for Old, written by
Can you hold it up?
Anatoly.
Or Jack.
You hold it up.
Yeah.
Anatoly Golitsyn.
Yeah, and he said that when the communists come in and take over, what they tell people is pretty much trust the plan.
Right.
Trust the plan.
And they say that there's generals that are going to make everything right. You don't need to worry or do nothing. And that really woke me up.
Me too.
Because I was like, oh my God, I've been trust the plan for too long.
Trust the plan. Everything's going to be taken care of. The white hats are coming. Panic in D.C. White to black. Right?
Yeah.
Trust the
And we're
plan.
So
doing
now
shit.
I'm like, oh my God, I just got woke.
and what you realize,
there's nobody coming.
what that-
General
what that
Flynn
is-
says that.
what that is,
There's
that's-
nobody coming.
That's right.
Well, we're coming.
Just us.
And
what-
hell's coming with us. I just always wanted to do that.
And that's called a Pied Piper operation.
Yeah.
So that's a Pied Piper operation. So they suck you in and they string you along and they say, don't worry.
They definitely went after Christians.
Of course.
With that.
That's why they use the Christian rhetoric. Because they use the Christian rhetoric because they know it's going to resonate. They know it'll resonate. Darkness, corruption, demon, spiritual warfare, Ephesians, full body of put on the full armor of God. This is they know these are
Pacification.
these are important words and phrases and powerful words and phrases that Christians will resonate. They've studied. They know what works. They know what it has that emotional connection with the audience. The same way that you know how to build through your entire career, the reason that you are so beloved, the reason that you are America's mom is because you know how to reach through that screen and build a relationship with somebody, that you've got that quality. And so what they're doing is they're flipping it on its head.
Yeah.
They're using the same power, the same tool set in order to lead people astray, or in some cases
To
pit people
destroy
against
them.
each other and destroy people.
That's why I just feel so bad about black people, because when I ran for president in 2012, I ran as the representative of the Black Caucus with Cynthia McKinney and Nation of Islam, and I didn't take that lightly.
They left you alone then, too. No one was fucking with you then.
Well, because I care so deeply about racism and systematic racism, and I still do. And I just hate when people are getting bamboozled and hoodwinked. I know everything about Malcolm X. I was a scholar about Malcolm X, and you know, I love what he said about economic communities having their. It's exactly what Trump talks about, like, you know, to bring economic parity to every community. And Trump did more for black people than Obama did.
Because at the end of
that's why they hate him.
At the end of the day, this does come down to economics. At the
Yeah,
end of the day,
absolutely.
That's why in the fourth turning, the theory of the fourth turning, they
What's
actually
that?
oh boy.
I don't know nothing about that.
So the theory of fourth turning, it's tied to the ancient idea that time is cyclical.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to linear time. So it's that time is cyclical, and that we've been going through. And when you look at the natural world is all cyclical, right?
Mm-hmm.
The moon has phases. The world has seasons, which is based on a
Life,
relation to the
death.
sun. And you know, life, death, renewal, growth, etc. And so it's taking that same theory, that same pattern that we see all throughout nature, and applying it to society and applying it to human history. So the Marxist belief of the progression of history is linear belief. And it's this belief that we'll have capitalism, we had feudalism, then we'll have capitalism pass into socialism pass into communism, then communism will eventually dissolve because because you internalize communism, there'll be no more governments because everyone will be communist. This is Marxist theory. So in the theory of the fourth turning,
like everybody's going to start helping their neighbor. That's a bunch of crap. You know what they really are doing, though? When I see that it's led by billionaires,
right.
It's just a return to feudalism.
That's right. It's exactly what it is. They want you to be a Russian serf. They
Right.
want you to go back to being a serf. They want you to go back to living in your hut that you don't even own because your liege lord owns it. Your liege lord, aka your landlord now, but it's going to be government because it's all be government owned. We have the number one, right now as we sit, we have the highest credit card debt in U.S. history. Over $1 trillion is currently held by Americans. Why? Because they're buying everything on credit. You're buying groceries on credit now.
They ain't got
They're
no money.
squeezed.
You got people out there paying their mortgages, paying their rent on credit. They're putting it all on credit because they're so squeezed because the dollar ain't, you know what, as Oliver Anthony tells us, your dollar ain't crap. And
Don't you love him?
and you are putting all of that on the backs of the American people, and you set up the millennials
Slavery.
too. You put up the millennials and Gen Z into debt slavery.
Yeah,
You
they're
put them
just
into
slaves.
debt slavery because now they've got you to the point where you can't own anything. They
And
don't-
you'll love it.
and they don't even want you to. Right. You'll own nothing, and you'll be happy because.
But you won't be happy.
This is not truly happy. You'll be distracted. That's what will actually happen. You'll be distracted. You'll be distracted.
You'll get a lot of porn.
So you'll get into it's mass consumption. So it's mass consumption. You will be obsessed with consumption of whatever that is. So you'll be obsessed with consuming. If it's entertainment, you're obsessed with consuming entertainment. If it's pornography, you're obsessed with pornography. If it's whatever it is, you become obsessed with that because you're no longer self-actualized because you've made it okay. You've become okay. You've been pacified to being okay with being mediocre, with being normal, being an NPC, and you're now just
No soul expression.
You're no soul. It's spirit death. So we didn't finish the fourth turning. So the fourth turning is the idea that this passes through cycles, and so the last four, and typically we see this in 80-year cycles, and so the last fourth turning would have been World War II, because it remade the world.
Yeah.
And right before the World War II was the Great Depression.
Right.
So what did we just have here? The global financial crisis. So we had a financial crisis that affected the entire globe. The last time that happened, there was a world war. Now we had a global financial crisis, and we're moving into the crisis phase. So the crisis. So the four turnings are: there's a building phase. There is a There is a success phase where everything is flourishing, everything is incredible.
Like the 50s.
Then you have an unraveling. And then you have an unraveling where it goes too far and stuff just doesn't seem to work the way it did. And then you have your crisis. And that's the fourth turning. That's the fourth turning phase. And that is the phase that this theory predicts we're in right now.
Oh, yeah, because look at China has missiles in Cuba.
China putting bases in Cuba.
I mean, Americans are like...
China putting bases in the Atlantic. And Americans... And Americans, they don't care because Americans are focused. What I just said, Americans have been pacified, they've been emasculated, they've been feminized. Especially the men have been completely feminized. And by the way, this is Nietzschean. Do you have the?
It is
I can look it up because we talked about this before.
So this is
Ubermensch, and what was the other one?
So this was the last man, the last man. And so Nietzsche. So everybody knows Nietzsche's theory.
All the men are girls.
Everyone knows Nietzsche's theory of the overman, right? The great man theory, that there's always going to be this sort of swath of population that comes in, and they are the innovators, the geniuses, the risk takers too. It's not just IQ, but not just intellect, but it's the people who are willing to build great things and do great things. But then there's the theory. But what's the opposite of that? What is the opposite of the overman?
The lemmings.
It's yes.
The lesser man.
Yes. It's not just lesser. It's the last man. So the last man is the man who is. Do you have the actual quote here?
I believe so. I mean, I just went to Wikipedia.
I like Nietzsche a lot. I just hate that the Nazis like him.
Listen to this. Everything around. I don't think you can blame the Nazis only on Nietzsche, though. I think people try to do that to discount Nietzsche a lot.
I love Nietzsche,
but
though,
I think there's far more to Nietzsche, and I think there's far more to
too.
the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany than just Nietzsche.
Yeah.
So here, everything around them decays and produces decay.
Yes.
Nothing will endure until the day after tomorrow except one species of man, the incurably mediocre.
No kidding.
The mediocre alone have the prospect of continuing and propagating themselves, the men of the future, the sole survivors, the last man. Where is it? It is the
triumph of the mediocre.
The triumph of the mediocre. Here it is. You become thinner. You become good-natured, prudent, comfortable, mediocre, more indifferent. You're obsessed with safety. You're obsessed with stability. You're obsessed with harmony. You can't handle.
You're a Democrat.
Conflict. You can't. You must go along and what has primacy in life? What is primacy and so you are not spiritual.
It's the obliteration of genius.
It's the obliteration of genius and the demonization of genius.
Yeah. And
it is what subsumes all of that is the primacy of the state.
Yes.
The state is overall, and the loss of any self-actualization,
right.
Individual spirit is snuffed out.
No growth.
It is completely snuffed out.
No responsibility, no growth, no transcendence.
And Nietzsche wrote that in 1883.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and this is what people don't understand, is that he was not arguing for it, he was predicting it.
Right.
He was predicting that this is the man that our current trajectory of our society, as we move away from God.
Yes.
And this is when he said God is dead, that's what he was explaining. He was not saying God should be dead. He was saying God is dead, we killed him. God is dead and we killed him.
So true.
And he was saying we've moved away from God, so what will happen? So what will happen is that all of this will come to pass.
It's pretty similar to the mice too, isn't it?
It's very similar to the mice.
So, I mean, you have an
It's
example
so
in real
about
time.
God, and I'm hoping that there'll be a revival, that it will be...
Can you get closer to the mic? I know you're tired, sorry.
I'm just hoping that there will be a revival, because I think that that's our only hope in America, is that there will be a revival. I call it just going over to the wall and plugging in, plugging into that.
Well, we have to. Because you look at society today, especially with Zoomers, they're coming into the world, they're coming online, and they have everything. They have access to everything at their fingertips. They have everything, but they have nothing.
Right.
Because there's no meaning.
Right.
Because there's no meaning. So it's watch the next video. Just watch the next video, and there's no meaning, there's no structure, there's no one to tell you which information. You have all the information, but no one to tell you what's important.
I say that every week. We have more information now, but we're less interested
What's
in
the
dumber.
what's important in my life, how to prioritize this, what are Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what is morality, what should my morality be, and this is where moral relativism comes in. This is where we didn't talk about wokeness or any of these things, but wokeness is an attempt to create a new religion in order to give people something to believe in and to fight for, to fill this spiritual gap. That's all wokeness is. And communism, which is a form of, which wokeism is a form of communism, as the great Twitter account Mystery Grove publishing company once wrote, is that communism is the system whereby ugly, disgusting, feral people make it illegal to be normal and beautiful and successful, and then also make it legal to imprison and kill you for it. And the ideology is all window dressing.
I heard this thing about God, and I want to say it. God is the will of the people united.
The people united.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I really like that, because I think that it is transcendent. I don't like the word transcendental, but transcendent. And I think maybe we're on the cusp of it, and I feel like that's what we need. We need to experience something new about God.
When Solzhenitsyn,
something new.
When Solzhenitsyn it was getting to the end of his life, and people didn't understand this about Solzhenitsyn. That
God, that guy was a genius.
That Solzhenitsyn was not a champion of. Obviously, he was anti-communist, but he was not a champion of pro-consumerist capitalism either.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually a monarchist, funny enough.
I think that's what I am.
He actually wanted a strong national leader, is what he was looking for, but he was deeply religious, and they asked him towards the end of his life. He said, if you could sum it all up, why did this all happen in Russia? Why did this insanity occur? How could it occur? And we know you've written the Gulag Archipelago. We know you've done all your writings, but sum it up for us. What was it? And he said, it's very simple. It's very simple. We forgot about God.
Yeah.
That's what Solzhenitsyn said. He said, all of this was possible because we forgot about God.
But isn't that by design? I mean, I got to ask a couple questions, sorry.
But if you notice, this is where Nietzsche and Solzhenitsyn are...
Well, all the great philosophers.
Well, all of us, exactly, we talk about too.
Exactly on the same page. But
you guys
100
keep
years after each other.
And that there's this plan. You've been doing it since the first minute of the show. I'm kind of a layman. You guys are obviously really, really intelligent, know your shit. But we're saying that it's communists and Marxists that are infiltrating the Vatican, church, American government, all this stuff. Is that who is they?
Sometimes, right?
Can you explain?
I think that it's.
Well, I'm talking about the trans.
Let's name them right now.
I'm talking about the transnational elites of the United States in this sense. The people who are writing the massive checks for candidates on either side. These
globalists.
It's more than just globalists, though. Because there are globalists that are not elites. There are globalists who believe in the system that are not super powerful.
Right.
You're talking about billionaires? What are you talking?
Yeah, billionaires.
Yeah.
Not all billionaires, but certainly a lot of them.
About oligarchs.
Yeah.
Who are they?
Oligarchs.
That's what I'm asking. Who are they? Because we keep saying they, but like we should specify the enemy.
But there's different. I mean, and people say like, oh, what do you mean by they, right? And
that's what I just said.
And it depends.
Is that how I sound, Jack?
It's no, because they'll say because in the sense media will say you were talking about. They'll claim you're anti-Semitic if you say they. They'll claim you're anti-Semitic if you say globalist. Claim everything is anti-Semitic.
Oh, I wasn't even getting to that.
No. I'm just saying that I've heard this brought up as a criticism, and
right.
Media will claim everything under the sun. So in this case, I mean the beneficiaries of these of these systems. So members of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, members of the global hyper-capitalist firms. People are associated on the Republican side with the Club for Growth. On the Democrat side, it's all of Wall Street, right? Wall Street is like 90% Democrat donations now. And there was a Chinese professor once who said this. He said since the 1970s, America has been controlled by Wall Street since the late 70s. And so when we need to deal with the United States, when there's an issue, we don't go to the politicians, we go to Wall Street.
Right.
And then we work with our connections there, and then they control the politicians, and then they get it all taken care of.
Right.
This is why, by the way, when the Russian-Ukrainian war kicked off, the U.S. government and Biden and Blinken and all these guys, they put sanctions on the Russian business leaders, right?
It made Russia so much richer.
And so,
they did them a favor.
Well, but they did, and Russia's now is now richer than Germany, so they're moving up in terms of the economy with purchasing power parity. But what I thought was very interesting was that they thought they could control Putin by putting pressure on the Russian oligarchs, and it's no, you fools, you don't understand how the Russian system works. In the Russian system, the oligarchs have their power because they have it through Putin.
Right.
In our system,
It's like the royals.
our president has power because of the oligarchs. So that's actually our system that works that way, not the Russian system.
Right.
Good point.
Not at all.
Yeah,
Because if they go
absolutely.
after Putin, they're done.
Right.
They're done for.
Right.
Right. Those are the ones, they lose their business. They get locked up in jail. They get their industries nationalized, which is how Gazprom and Rosneft got into power, because he nationalized it from oligarchs that didn't want to work with Putin, basically, that wanted to run their own operations and line their own pockets. And with the United States, though, it's the opposite, because we are the ones controlled by the oligarchs, not them.
Right, absolutely. Hey, did you ever read, I'm sure you didn't, because nobody knows I'm kind of smart, but when I ran for president in 2012, I wrote a letter as the candidate from the Peace and Freedom Party to President Putin.
Yeah.
And it's on academia, whatever that academia thing. And I read it, and it was very prescient. I wrote it in 2012 about, Dear President Putin, if I win as President of the United States, these are the things I would work on with you. I would suggest everybody go to academia. What is it, academia.com? And read it.
So did he respond?
No, he never responded, but a lot of people have read it, and maybe he'll respond if I say, hey, give that a look. But it was a lot of really good ideas.
Can Roseanne bring peace to the world?
I think so.
Can Roseanne end the Ukrainian war?
I think I can. Like Trump says, I could end it in 24 hours. But, Trump took a lot of my ideas, or we were on the same vibration. I shouldn't say he took them, but we were on the same wavelength.
Would you go to Moscow if Trump wins and asked you to go? Would you go?
I would do anything to move things along to a peaceful place in the world for children, because the children have suffered too much, and it just has to stop. It must stop.
When I interviewed Tim Ballard from Sound of Freedom, and he's the one that's the origin of the movie's based on him, and he said that when you look at things like the Ukraine war or the Haitian earthquake or any of these mass disaster events, and all across the Middle East constantly, he said that these child trafficking organizations look at it as harvest season. They say they call it harvest season. And there was actually someone in Ukraine very recently who was stopped at the border, and he was a child trafficker, and he had a young, I believe she was 8-year-old girl in the back of his car, and he was crossing out of Ukraine into Slovakia. And he had told the mother, and the mother was a refugee, and he had an actual refugee, by the way. He had told the mother that he was with an adoption service, and that he was going to take the girl and place her to a family in Paris, and they had the family all worked out, and he was going to pay her a $5,000 fee, like a adoption fee. He was going to pay the mother, and he gave her, I think, $1,000 cash, American cash. I mean, she's running out of war-torn Ukraine. She's running out. The dad's got to stay back because of martial law, so he's got to stay and fight. She doesn't know and I've been to the train stations there. We went to Ukraine last year, and we were when the train station in Poland, and it's chaos. It's complete bedlam, and these traffickers target because you're in such distress. You haven't slept. You don't know where your money is, and they see the mom and the kid, and you just want to
Send your child to safety.
Get your kid to safety, and that's your single driving reason. You care about yourself. And along comes somebody, and they got cash. They're giving you cash, and they're saying they're going to give you $4,000 more. And if you just let the kid come with me now, and I'll take him to in this case it was a boy, to the parents. And it was actually the Ukrainian police that caught him, and they found out that in this case this guy was actually an intermediary. And the child was then going to be sold for organ trafficking.
I know that's happening.
And they were gonna sell the. And by the way, this is not like you can go on the Ukrainian National Police website. Yeah. And here's the problem, though. The problem, and I hate to say this, they were looking for this guy because it wasn't the first time he'd done it.
No, I've known for a long time.
And this is the time
every
they caught
place,
him.
the whole world that we live on top of. Underneath us is nothing but trafficking tunnels where they do this stuff. And the whole world is a bunch of tunnels where they move children.
And this one, they were able to save the kid. They were able to get him back.
And that's good.
But the question is, that's the one they found.
Yeah, how many got through?
And even we're going to be working on this on Human Events. We're working on a story right now where a Ukrainian journalist actually got into the prison where he's being held and got him to record on video a confession, but also to name other members of the network, because apparently they were running it through this, they called it a school for orphans. But of course, sometimes some of the orphans, we're going on a field trip, and then they take the orphans on a field trip, and 25 go out and 23 come back. Jesus or Christ. Someone comes to take some of the kids, and they come at night, and then the kids come back in the morning. And there's more to it. So on humanevents.com, we're working on the story. We're fact checking as much of it.
I've got a lot of stories.
We've got translators, but
I have a lot of information for you. Every place there's tunnels, they've been doing it for generations.
Well, and this is what Epstein was. Mm-hmm. This is clearly what Epstein was.
He was breeding.
This was a node of his ranch. He didn't just have the island. He had the ranch. Yeah. He had facilities. He was obsessed with breeding. MIT was involved in this. Steven Pinker, Bill Gates, even Stephen Hawking went to the island, and so. The fact that he was able to operate an industrial size child trafficking organization, and not under the nose.
They don't even say child.
No, we all knew about it. We've talked about it for 20 years on Epstein.
With government.
Right.
With government.
Subsidized.
People need to understand that you're not looking at someone who was a criminal. You're looking at an operation.
An asset.
Yeah.
Right. You're looking at an intelligence asset, someone
I
who's
said
working
Epstein was running the Fed.
He's certainly tied to everyone up there, and he's a financier, and he was not providing financial assistance to anyone or financial.
That's why
advice.
when he says they, I get really deep into it. I mean, it is like a Babylonian death cult.
Well, there's different levels to it.
I know you weren't insinuating that I was saying it was Jewish people. I'm really saying, shouldn't we name the enemy explicitly, whoever it is, because
it's Babylon.
I think it's Luciferians, but
it's the new Babylon.
Yeah,
it's the new Babylon.
Okay, so is that? Or is it communist? Is it China?
Fine. They're all the same thing.
But we need to know who we're fighting, because it's like, some days it's China, some days it's Democrats, some days it's rhinos, and it's like we're overwhelmed.
They're all the same that have absolutely no value on human life whatsoever. They have no souls, and they don't think anybody else has a soul. They don't believe that there's a God, and they just think people are meat.
It's the people after the family.
They do believe in a God.
Well, the devil.
They believe, and they believe that they are God. They believe that they can become God.
That's Luciferian.
Which is Luciferian, yes.
It is. No, that's their tenet.
It is obviously a Luciferian belief. So whether or not they're actually worshiping Satan, I don't know, but it is a Luciferian belief.
Absolutely.
The UN is based on it.
You think?
Yeah, the UN reading room is called the Luciferious reading room, The whole thing of the UN is based on
I didn't know. I never
the
heard that.
emanation of
heard this either,
the
but-
light bearer.
Well, that's Lucifer, of course, meaning light bearer, because
Yeah.
Lucifer is the fallen angel.
Did you know that's what the Statue of Liberty is?
The Statue of Liberty is based on that.
Is Lucifer,
Light
I
bearer.
never heard this.
the light bearer. It's all so horrible. I just pray God make yourself more visible to people who have souls. Please make yourself more visible to people who have souls. Do it right away. Thank you.
I'm actually, and we didn't talk about this, but I'm actually optimistic. I really
You
am.
are?
Which I know
I
we've
am
talked
too.
about all this.
I'm not.
All this negative stuff.
Yeah.
I'm white pilled. I'm
Yeah.
totally white pilled.
What is white pill? I never heard that.
So you've heard black pill, right?
Well, he said it. I don't know what it means.
Okay,
I
I'm
heard-
rose-pilled.
So
That's
some
what we're
people,
calling
what's
it.
rose
Bar,
pilled?
bar-pilled.
Oh,
when you learn the Statue of Liberty is
rose-pilled,
Lucifer.
Yeah, yeah.
What's
I'll have to
white
think
pill?
about. I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah.
That I know she's French. So red pilled and blue pilled, people know that from the
I know what
Matrix,
that
right?
is.
Yeah.
And it's from the Matrix. Red pill, you wake up. The blue pill, you stay asleep. Right? Everyone knows that one.
That's blue pill level understanding of color pills.
Yes, exactly. And then there's white pill and black pilled. And so the black pill is pessimism.
Oh.
This is I am the outlook is bleak. The glass is half empty. There's no hope.
No hope.
We're done.
All right, I'm black pilled then.
It's over. It's all over, right? It's over. And then the white pill is we're back. We
I'm
are
white pilled.
so back.
I'm white pill.
So do you think we're back?
I know we are. I know we are because I see evidence of it everywhere.
I think we're
and
back.
I pray all the time I pray to God that I will have the eyes to witness his miracles. And I do all the time. I go, oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening.
I'm
and that I
thinking-
have the eyes to see it.
I'm thinking we're back.
I'm not.
I'm thinking we're back.
I think
why,
so.
though?
Because you are starting to see the organic formulation of the same types of networks that we saw in 2016, and I was there, and you were there, and this organic spiritual growth of freedom-loving Americans, and
Thinkers.
I don't mean conservatives.
No, I know
don't
what you mean.
mean Republicans. I mean people that are willing to question the narrative, and
thinkers.
at this point, not just question the narrative,
Challenge
but to attack the narrative, to fight back against the lies, fight back against gaslighting. That people who are sick of it, people are just completely sick of it, and they can see what's going on. They can see the persecution of political enemies, trying to throw your opposition party in jail, something that's never been done in this country. Ever been done
Not
in
in
this
this country, but it's
And
been done.
it's been done around the world. It's going on right now around the world. And we're not the country that's done that. We've never been the country that's done that, certainly not in the middle of the election. And so when I see this energy level on the rise, it's because you push the pendulum all the way in one direction,
Yeah.
which they've done. But what happens when you push the pendulum all the way in one
It
direction?
swings
It
back.
swings back and smacks them as hard in the face as you do it. It smashes them in the face.
Well, that's
And
why
it's
I'm black
going to
pilled,
smash
because
them
when
in
I
the
see this
face.
stuff going on, I'm like, yeah, we're back. And then I go on Twitter, and it's like fucking all these operatives, and they're like, kill, put Trump in jail, put Trump in jail.
That's why I
it's
got
not
off
10
Twitter,
people,
'cause
it's
it's
millions.
not real.
But the point is, their side, they're not on our side on this. They're thinking when we talk about, oh, we're standing up against corruption and seeing it, they're thinking, oh, you're white supremacist, you're Gen 6 domestic terrorist.
I think those numbers are dwindling.
I think
I
they
think
are.
their
I hope
numbers.
so.
I think their numbers are going down. Sure, they have true believers, obviously.
But they have the
'cause they're
youth.
getting
We don't have
paid.
the youth.
They don't even believe it. They're getting paid.
No, but they have the youth. They have Gen Z. They really do. They have whatever. I don't know the gens.
Well,
but,
only the pink-haired ones.
no, but that's most of them. They have TikTok. Like, we can't compete with the kids.
I see every day what I see. Every day, and I'm so thankful because I feel a part of it. I see black people every single day waking up to it and going, I'm not going to be a slave.
I think there's a lot of people waking up, and I think it's
I-
cutting
I
But there's a
see-
lot of people going to sleep.
Because
I'm not
they
trying to be
thi-
black pilled.
No,
I'm just saying.
but they think
You're
they,
not wrong.
I know. I'm never.
There's- there are-
The Democrats think they own black people.
Well, they
And
do.
We all know that. But I'm seeing black people walk away from the Democrat plantation. I'm still not seeing many Jews walk away, which is really pissing me off and
Well,
makes
American
me depressed.
Jews. They're different than
American Jews, but I'm seeing Israel do it.
Israel Jews are more right wing than we are. American
I'm
Jews
seeing
are the bad
Israel
ones.
overthrow their corrupt. You think we got a bad DOJ, Department of Justice? They just overthrew theirs, liberal leftist.
Well, that's why they're trying to go after Netanyahu again.
Well, there's a lot of things going on there because he looks one way, but he does another thing. But their judicial system punishes religious people. And they got rid of it. And I'm so happy
It's great.
because they got a lot of liberals that don't like religious Jews, and they don't even have one liberal in their government anymore. It's
God,
good.
they're lucky. I wish we could do that here.
Lord, I see what you've done for others, and I want that for me.
But then I'm seeing all these black.
I don't think that
I'm
we should
seeing
get
all
rid
these
of.
black people that are like wising up to the
No,
Democrats.
but see, I don't.
Yeah, but you
I
have.
don't-
I'm sorry, I got to comment. You have. That's true, but you have young, white, blue-haired land whales, millennials. They don't even know what their genitals mean anymore. They're 22 and younger. They're on TikTok all day. They're coomers. They're jerking off. They are not on our side, and they are a huge voting bloc. We can't really compete with them. We don't have that.
No, we can compete with them. We
How?
can. But this is why I'm saying
Right,
that
I'm black
number one. Okay, you're talking about an arbitrary demographic that's spread out across the country.
the
Right.
victims.
Remember
The woke tards.
Remember, Joe Biden won by 40,000 votes in 3 states.
Yeah.
So go back to the math, right? Go back to the math. We're not talking about these millions and millions. We're talking about 43 votes, 40,000 votes in 3 states. Okay, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin.
Right.
You flip that, it's done. And it doesn't, because in this system, this amazing system that we have, it doesn't matter how many millions of land whales are in California. It doesn't matter because the numbers don't. Guess what? The national popular vote doesn't matter. That's why, by the way, they want to make it matter.
Right.
Because they want to get rid of the electoral college. So going long term,
Well, unless
we
they
have
win
to
through the
make
college.
sure. We have to make sure that we hold on to the electoral college.
Absolutely.
We have to.
100%.
Because
Even if we lose to the college,
if that goes
protected at all
away,
costs.
Then we'll have
they
mob rule.
They will dominate mob
San
rule.
Francisco, LA,
But they
New
say
York
that
will own
Trump-
everything, control everything.
They say
And
that
so-
Trump easily won California. They say the truth is that it was a total red win.
Well, even if they do, they'll never give the count statewide. They'll never give the true.
Well,
they'll
that's the
never
other thing. They
allow
cheat
that.
too. So it's
And
like even if we win, we don't win.
And so this is why you need to this is why we need to be strategic. Because if we start saying, "Oh, we're going to convert all the Zoomers," it's never going to work. You're running up against numbers there. You don't have the time. You don't have the resources. You don't have the ability to do that because we don't have a lot of time.
Right.
No,
But
we
what
got to get smart,
what we
fast.
can do is understand the chess game there is. Chess, not checkers. Right? Checkers is that we try to go get all the Zoomers or something.
Right. Not gonna happen.
Chess is we go to the strategic focal points,
Well,
the
you're
centers of
smart on that.
gravity of this. We're just talking politics here, right? Just talking politics. You go to those areas. You generate. We look at the spiritual awakening that's going on in this country right now, and I believe there is one going on right now in this country.
I would say
I do
there is.
too.
And we are in the midst of it. We are in the midst of a spiritual awakening. It's just begun. It's just begun. But this will be a wave. I think the fourth awakening that America has undergone through its American history, because you can also look to just prior to 1776, there was a spiritual awakening going on in America. There was.
Yeah,
Yes.
first
And
it was in France.
and it's that same, but that was diverted to a lot of evil in France. But the ability of a spiritual awakening to be tied to the correct timing of an election year, harnessing that energy to explain to people this isn't about Donald Trump, right? It's about using his candidacy as a tool to smash this regime that we live under right now, to demolish it as Michael Moore said, a political hand grenade into Washington D.C.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
and all the
Everyone
corruption,
can agree
all the
with
corruption
that.
there, and then going state by state, and then going state by state. And if we focus, we talked about the offense, we talked about the defense, the drop boxes, the monitoring, drones, cameras, geo-tracking cell phone data, all of this stuff in real time in those areas. Then you can win the election.
Okay.
And I'm seeing,
I'm
and
white
because
pilled
I'm
now.
seeing these organic groups now on the rise, this organic connections, organic spiritual
Grassroots.
awakenings. that are going on, which, by the way, didn't happen in 2020 because we were locked down. That's why some of the scenarios we have to be careful. We cannot allow them to lock us down again.
Nope,
we
can't do it.
cannot allow it, no matter what. No matter
Right.
mass civil disobedience if they try to lock us down again.
Yeah.
Mass civil disobedience.
Yeah.
We cannot fall for false flags.
We have to mostly peaceful protest.
We
as
cannot.
fuck.
We cannot fall for false
And
flags.
we can't fall for their fake grassroots revolution.
They will try
which
to-
comes from the top
Of
of
course,
billionaires
of
down.
course.
Or their Fed
we
traps.
can't do
They
that.
will try. They will try to launch another George Floyd operation.
Mm-hmm.
They'll try to. And James Lindsay has said this. They'll like a trans Floyd. Someone who's a transgender activist is killed, and
Well,
suddenly
they have a couple of
blame
them
it.
shooting a lot of schools.
Right.
Oh, you
and
mean
so,
one of them?
which that they actually did to us by shooting up the school of Christian children, and then
Oh my God! And they didn't even acknowledge
they
it.
No,
don't even
because
acknowledge
the
it.
trans
They don't
shooter
even
doesn't
acknowledge
count.
it. And then the third,
That's like
the
China.
third scenario, and this is one that no one's even talked about yet. The third scenario, imagine this: Trump wins the election.
Mm-hmm.
Trump wins the canvass. The secretaries of state come forward and say Trump won. Not just the unofficial on election day and the day after, but I mean, even the secretaries of state a week later come out and all certify Trump won. And then a guy that nobody's paying attention to right now by the name of Merrick Garland
Yeah, that
comes
worm.
forward on maybe the first day of December, and he comes forward and he says, I'm going to give a press conference at Main Justice, DOJ headquarters, Washington, D.C., and he comes out and says, we've detected anomalies
Oh
Right.
yeah,
in
yeah.
3 states, Arizona, Wisconsin,
Atlanta.
and Georgia, right? Atlanta, Georgia.
Then they'll actually audit
we've
the vote.
detected anomalies, and we've received reports of voter suppression.
Right.
Oh
And we've
yeah, they already are
received-
talking about that.
and we've and therefore we must and then he's going to and they're going to try to do everything they can
well, they did it
to-
in 2016.
to block the election,
Yep.
to block the electors, and by the way, have their own January 6th, but with the full backing of the federal government and probably a lot of the state governments. And you will see, right? You will see them try to stop Trump from taking office,
Yep.
even if he wins the election.
No, you're absolutely
Well,
right.
look at like every day since he won in 2016, there was Hillary. He's an illegitimate president.
Yep.
Every
It was
single
this
day
is
for
the deconstruction
years.
project. So this was the deconstruction project, which was launched the day after. So November 9th, 2016. So he wins the 8th, launched the 9th. Well, he gives his speech on 3 a.m. on the 9th in Midtown Manhattan. I was there in the room. He gives a speech. Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business. And he actually, I was also standing outside the hotel before Trump came in Midtown Manhattan, because he had been up in the tower because they didn't know what was going on. Right? I knew he won, but he didn't know. So he's up in the war room in the tower in his offices, and then when he shows up, as his motorcade was coming to the hotel where the party was in Midtown, there were police, there NYPD, there was FDNY, they were all there. Terrorism task force guys were all there, and I happened to be standing outside because I was calling Tanya. She was just my girlfriend at the time, long before marriage, kids, etc. And I was calling her to say, hey, it's a late night, but we think it's going our way. I watched John Podesta's speech on like a side TV on the side of a fire truck because I was out there just trying to get coverage and be able to talk to her. I'll never forget this because, and I wrote about this in my first book, that all of a sudden, and you could see the first cars of the motorcade start to arrive, and they said that Trump's coming. Every single member of the NYPD and the FDNY that were there, and nobody told them to do this. Nobody gave the order, but all the men who were there, they all lined up and down the sidewalk. They all stood at attention, every single one of them, and when Trump got out of that motorcade, when he opened the door, every single one of them saluted.
Wow.
And they said, "Congratulations, Mr. President," as he walked down through the entire row of all of them.
It was the hope of America.
And I feel like I'm the only person who saw it.
Wow, that's
And
incredible.
it wasn't official. But all the men knew. All the boys in blue, they all knew.
Can't wait for that. I hope that
the
happens
new
again.
sheriff was in town. And they say, "Congratulations, Mr. President. Congratulations, Mr. President. Congratulations, Mr. President." He saluted, and Trump saluted them all back as he walked by.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
What if we put like food outside the voting stations of like meat? You know, like a luau to scare off the landwells and vegans, or holy, because you're. I'm
No,
just
you
thinking
need
different
what you need to
things.
do is
Let's
you know
get
what
out
they're
of the
doing. No,
box.
but you know what you're doing in
Meat.
no. So what
You
they're
have a
doing.
luau and holy
listen.
water. You feed them holy water.
So what they're doing, yeah, holy water for sure. But then what they're doing in like communion wafers and all of it.
Yeah, that's how we win.
What you're doing is like I'll call up some of the Catholic priests there, and we'll exorcisms, just mass exorcisms when you come up to the drop boxes.
Oh, they'll just freak out and run.
with consecrated host, and they'll be delivering communion, and we'll say we're offering the Eucharist.
Yeah.
If you'd like to receive Eucharist, you can, and they just start sizzling and run away.
Oh my god! Or you have to vote on a treadmill. You have to run.
So
like,
but in LA, you know what they're doing now for the homeless? They're playing music outside of all the 7-Elevens in LA and some of the other cities, and they're playing like music that for whatever reason the homeless hate, so they can't sleep.
Oh,
and so they're
God.
playing music outside there. So in
Horrible.
one 7-Eleven, it was classical music just all night, like playing playing Wagner, like really loud.
That's what they did at Waco with the Branch Davidians.
Was it Waco? Yeah. And then they did another one in LA, and they were playing Africa by Toto. 24/7 on a loop, cranked.
That's what we need to do.
I posted this on
that's
online.
so
It got millions of
horrible.
views because it just went up. And then people thought it was fake. And then one of my followers actually went to the 7-Eleven, was like, "I'm here," and you know who else is here? Toto's Africa is here, and they just kept playing it. So I'm saying we just do that,
Yeah.
right? And we just mass. We have mimetic warfare, psychological warfare, musical warfare.
I think we should do more guerrilla theater
Country
and
music.
psychological
They hate
warfare.
country
They hate country. Get
Oh, yeah,
Oliver.
it would be
Get
country.
Oliver Anthony. You like country? You're a country girl.
I love country music.
Okay.
I do.
You've got the full Oliver Anthony soundtrack.
I love him.
He's amazing.
Isn't that
He
he's
hit-
like I told Jake, he's the Woody Guthrie of this century.
He plucked, I think, a song that we didn't realize we had all heard it, right? But he plucked that right from the air.
Yeah.
He plucked that right from
That's
the
how it
air.
yeah, God gave it to him.
And exactly. It had been floating around, and he put it in.
I
That's
want
all
to
he
cut
put it
Mom
in.
because she says on this podcast a lot.
I tried to get him to come on.
The hatred we have for each other, because we always talk every week, like, what can we do? Like, I'm
I
asking.
say it in my act. What
tell
if
him.
we take the hatred we have for each other that we're fed on the media 24/7, and just this once, we get together, and instead of putting it on each other, we point it upwards at the people who are actually guilty. What if just this once we do that?
Well, I think we should, and I don't. And this is where you have to be careful, because this is also it's kind of opening. It opens the door to the communists too. But this is where you get back, and where the populists separate from the communists, is to say, look, we're not against success.
Mm-hmm.
We're not against people achieving. We're not against greatness. What we're against is corruption. What we're
That's
against
right.
is control. What we're against is people
Dishonesty.
who dishonesty, lies, the actual oppression.
Yeah.
This is what we are against. We're not against anybody who wants to achieve. We're not against, if Elon Musk wants to colonize the stars, great. We should be focused on that. We should be trying to strive for that as a country. And we should have the best people in the best positions, regardless of whatever their race and gender and all these different, sets. No, I want the person who's best at math running the rockets. I want the person who's best at fighting fires, running the fire system. I want the people who are best at making sure the water is running the water system and the electric grid.
Yeah,
all of
the
these
best,
things.
excellence.
We've totally lost this conception
Not
of
taking care of big whining
the best,
babies.
the excellence, competence, basic competence. This should be what we're focused on: merit, achievement. That's what but we don't do that.
And then morally, we should all get behind, let's get rid of cruelty. Let's stop being cruel.
But here's another piece of that, though, because cruelty stems from envy. So cruelty stems from envy. And so it's not that we are envious, right? Because we're not trying to tear down, right, anyone who's successful, anyone who's achieved. What we want is to create a stable pathway so that anyone can do it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
More love, less cruelty.
That's it. And so because there's so many people that they'll go to the millennials, and this is why what the left
They're
wants,
so cruel.
what the left wants is revenge. Because,
Yes.
Yeah.
like I said before,
Yes.
they are communists, right? They want revenge, petty cruelty,
Blood.
They want blood. They want the ugly, deformed freaks, making it illegal to be normal, and then they rob and kill all the successful people out of resentment and cruelty. Right?
Yeah.
The ideology, it's all just window dressing. It's words.
Right.
It's all window dressing and words, and that's Mystery Grove again.
Yep.
And it's they want to find a Chavez. They want a Chavez to rise up and go to the millennials and go to the Zoomers, and it's not Bernie and it's not AOC and it ain't Biden. I don't even think it's Newsom. I don't think we've seen them yet. I think it will be a millennial, and they will rise up and they will say, I will be the one to smash the rich, to smash the billionaires, to redistribute the wealth, to confiscate the wealth, confiscate the land, confiscate the farms. And by the way, the World Economic Forum and BlackRock and Blackstone, they're just waiting for this.
Yeah.
They can't wait for this.
Yeah.
They can't wait. That's what they're going after in Ukraine is the farmland.
I know.
Right? They want it all to be they want it to all be GMOs. They want it to all be Monsanto. They want that all that farmland.
I told
family
Jake we
farms. They
should.
want all that.
We're gonna go eat meat when we finish this, but I told Jake I should serve you bugs.
Bugs.
That
No.
would be fun.
We were gonna
No.
cook crickets for you.
We're gonna
No.
do crickets.
No.
Because, you know, like the WEF,
No.
they're saying we have to eat crickets.
No. Never. Never.
No, for a joke.
Never. Are they going to be covered in chocolate? Maybe.
All right. Yeah, we should probably eat and wrap it up.
Do
Right?
they sell
Let's go
that? Do they
eat.
sell that at Buc-ee's?
I just wanted to, they probably do.
Soon.
But
Never.
let's continue this
Yeah.
You-
at another time. I am so appreciative of you coming, and what a wonderful interview it was, and how wonderfully fun it was to talk to you about so many subjects. And I wish you well with your beautiful family.
Thank you.
You are an intellectual, and it was just so fun to be intelligent with you.
Well, God bless you. And I need to say thank you to you because people don't know this, but all the way back in 2016, 2017, when I was just getting started, one of the very first people who followed me and shared my stuff was Roseanne.
Oh,
You were one of the first big follower accounts, and you would share my stuff and you would tell people to follow me. I would not be here if it wasn't for you.
That's sweet.
And people like you who gave me a shot.
Well, because I could tell you were smart, and I love smart people.
Well, okay. Well, no one ever said you were perfect. So.
Also, I want to thank you, Jack. And will you please admit that you are a CIA operative before you leave?
Look, you know what they say, man. Once you go Langley, you never go back.
I love Langley.
You got it. No, we take Langley back. Occupy Langley. Occupy the
My
CIA.
friend lives there.
Occupy the CIA. Occupy Langley.
We need to occupy everything.
I'm the crypto-fascist, Mossad, CIA agent, Russian, KGB all at once.
I love that. I'm going to put that in the
I'm all
snippets
that
for this
too. They
episode.
say about me.
That's great. There's a lot of paychecks.
But I'm not
paychecks,
getting
right?
a dime out of none
You're
of
getting a dime?
them.
Oh, they're getting it off of you. That's it. They're just using the face. That's what it is.
But
right.
I just send out a lot of love to people to wake up and, let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
You laid it out real good for us.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jack, so much.
Oh, you see